Conscious Hour. There's been some controversy about that they would never expand any further to the east. And people said, oh, that was never true. Well, golly gee, I've documented it now. Ray McGovern, ex-CIA, been there his whole life. He was there. So listen closely, folks.
My feelings too. Now, when you were sitting, as you did, briefing President Reagan, who was succeeded, of course, by his vice president, George Bush Sr., the guarantees that were given by the American side at that time, when Gorbachev very foolishly agreed to withdraw his forces from Eastern Germany to facilitate the reunification of Germany. He did so on a promise from your president that NATO would not expand 1 inch to the east if Gorbachev agreed. There can't have been many more gigantic broken promises ever made than that one, really. Don't you think?
That's right, George. Just think about the quid here for that quo. The quid was given by Jim Baker, a Texas lawyer. He says, hey, Mikhail Gorbachev, how would this be? You recognize a reunified Germany. Now, George, 27 million Russians or Soviets died at the hands of a unified Germany, okay? So that's a big, big quid, okay? And they said, what do we get for this? And that's when the promise came in. Not 1 inch eastward will we move NATO. Now, there's been all kinds of explanations as to why that wasn't written down. I had a chance to ask Kuvaldin, one of Gorbachev's most close associates, one time, and I was in Moscow about 5 years ago, and I said, tell me, Mr. Kuvaldin, why wasn't that written down? And he said, well, Mr. McGovern, the usual explanations, Germany hadn't bought into it yet, and this was about Germany, right? The Warsaw Pact was still in existence. But, Mr. McGovern, you want to know the real reason? I said, yeah. I said, we trusted you. Now, trust has evaporated. There have been a whole series of agreements, Minsk agreements, all kinds of agreements that have been agreed to and reneged upon by the Germans, by the French, by us, okay? And treaties that such as used to exist, like the anti-ballistic missile treaty, which I had a personal hand in offering intelligence to support it. 72, George W. Bush, forget about it, out of that treaty. The Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty, George, which you'll recall, 1987, prohibited and destroyed in place a whole class of medium and intermediate nuclear missiles. My God, I never thought that would happen. That stayed in place for 32 years until Donald Trump was told by some military, well, it'd be better to get out of that. And they got out of that. And when the Russians said, why are you doing this? The answer they got, and I know this for a fact, it's none of your damn business. We do what we want to do. And you know what else? We're going to put intermediate range missiles, not only in Ukraine, but in Germany next year, 2016. We have a bilateral agreement announced at NATO, but not part of NATO. Just Olaf Scholz is asked, what's this all about? I thought we got rid of those missiles. And he said, no, the Americans have decided to do this. And I said, yes, we will. So Europeans have to grow up. And the seven dwarfs, you're going to have to contend with the realities. They're still in denial. I'm afraid there'll be some sort of false flag to try to put a wedge into this budding agreement between Ukraine and between Ukraine and Russia, if that happens. But the thing is over. The Russians are approaching the Dnieper River. They will only stop when they're satisfied that there's enough distance between them and Western forces so that they won't be in receipt of missiles that are fired from the west to the east. And that's sort of guaranteed now. that the U.S. has announced that we are depriving the Ukrainians of the technology, of the intelligence necessary to find targets and to fire those missiles into Russian territory, be it now in Ukraine or in Russia proper.
That's reality, folks. No further expansion. For all you non-historians, now you know. You see how America is? We just do whatever the fuck we want. We don't care. We're God. We're the mightiest country in the world. With our allies, Britain, we're just like buddies. Let's just go in and rape and pillage countries. And there's a whole bunch of other ones that like to do the same thing. Have enough? How about a world where we all work together? It's the Conscious Hour.